to another vlog. Welcome, I'm Pashvika. Welcome to my channel. If you are new here, someone consider subscribing for more future vlogs, art vlogs, clay videos, and a lot more. So consider subscribing. Well, in today's video, I'm going to be clearing up the confusion regarding the different kinds of clay bodies, especially if you're starting with the pottery, sculpture making, or even for simply pottery, or even if you want to start with the clay projects. I'm going to be talking about 3 different types of clay, especially catering to the pottery for the sculpting. So I'm going to be talking about 3 different clays because when I was getting started with my own clay journey, I was also confused a lot, like which clay should I need to choose, which one is the best, which one will going to help me to make the things that I want to make and all those kind of stuff. So I am here sharing my own experience and knowledge with you guys so far in my own clay journey, clearing the doubts about 3 different types of clay that you can use for pottery, for sculpting, and I'm going to be talking about all that. But before that, guys, I'm going to be showing you that these are the clay earrings I made recently. Now it's kind of like a dried, maybe coloring it or maybe turning it into something beautiful and finishing up with my earrings. So these are the glitters. Yes, guys, I do love a lot. These are the beautiful glitters. So I'm going to be using these glitters. Now these were there in my makeup box. Now I don't use a makeup, but these glitters are kept like that only. So I thought, why not use it for my earrings to decorate them? Why not? It could be an amazing idea. So guys, I'm going to be talking with you guys about different clay bodies, explaining in detail regarding my own experience and which of the clay is best for the beginners, especially for the pottery and sculpting and miniatures. So let's dive in. If you really enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up. And do let me know your views and thoughts in the comment section below. I would really love to hear from you. Making the clay earrings, and I added a glitter to them, so they're looking pretty beautiful. This one also, this one on the side, beautiful. So these are the earrings I made. Now let's talk about the different clay bodies, and I'm gonna be explaining in depth. The first of all, there are the 3 basic types of clay for the pottery, for the sculpting. Now there are so many different clays in the market out there, but basically I'm going to be dividing them into 3 different categories. The first one is the earthenware clay. That's quite common. And the second clay is a stoneware clay, and the third is the porcelain, or you could call it as a ceramic clay. Now of course there is air dry clay out there, the polymer clay is there, the cold porcelain is there, and all different kinds of clay are there. But in this video I'm just gonna be focusing on talking about the 3 different types of the clays. If you want a video talking me about the air dry clay, polymer clay, and other clays that are available in the market, do let me know in the comment section below. I'm gonna make a separate video for that. But let's now talk about these 3 different types of clays and which one is the best for you as a beginner. So let's first talk about the earthenware clay. Earthenware clay mostly comes as a terracotta clay. Now this one, the sculpture I made from the earthenware clay, it's the terracotta clay. Quite cheap to use. It's not that expensive in comparison to the porcelain, the ceramic clay. It's quite handy and it's quite amazing. This is one of the earliest clays used by the potters, and it is the most common type of clay found. These clays are highly plastic and easily work and can be sticky. These are highly plastic. They are terracotta pots that we use for the plants. These are quite porous if you are purchasing from the market. These are quite porous. You're just gonna add the water will going to seep out of it a bit more. If you apply a varnish or a sealant over here, then it's a little bit different story. But this clay type is kind of like a more porous. Even after firing, it is quite porous. Other mineral impurities which cause the clay to reach its optimum hardness at lower temperature. So these are low fired clays. They don't need much higher temperature in comparison to stoneware clays, in comparison to porcelain clays. Like you can fire at lower temperatures around 950 degrees Celsius to 1100 degrees Celsius. If you calculate the Fahrenheit, it is 1745 degree Fahrenheit to around 2012 degree Fahrenheit. So these are low fired clays. They don't need much heat or much fire at high. Good thing about the earthenware clay is that they are easy to make. They are quite plastic, so that when you're working with them, personally when I was working with the earthenware clay, I feel like these are so amazing to make. Like you're just gonna add the water to it, it will going to make soft, and then you can give it to the proper shape, and it will going to dry with plastic hard type of constant, or you could call it as a leather hard. And then you can fire in the low fire And most of the, you see the red bricks are made from this clay. Also the terracotta pots are made from this clay. The only downside I found with this clay type is that they are porous. Like even after firing them, they are so porous, the water may leak out of it. You have to use a sealant, or you have to use some kind of a varnish. Even for the terracotta pots that people purchase for the plants, some of the people don't use it, so you're gonna see the water will going to come a little bit from those pots. But some of the people do use the varnish or sealant, or kind of like a spray, whatever is there in the market, to seal all the porous gaps that are there in the earthenware clay. That is the one little bit downside of the earthenware clay. Apart from that, this is quite cheap. If you are getting started with that, you can buy some of the terracotta earthenware clay. You can get your hands around it. I personally use the terracotta clay and I really loved it. Now you could see this is a sculpture I made on the wood. This is a wood and I made this sculpture. Now I can't fire it because if I'm gonna fire this wood, then it will going to burn with the ashes. So obviously I can't fire it, but this is a low fire clay. So that is the beauty about the earthenware clay. Let's talk about the second clay type that is the most commonly used by the people, also by the different kinds of these sculpture artists. That's the stoneware clay. Now stoneware clay is now this is the sculpture I made from the stoneware clay. Now this was the gray clay that I get from the market. It is made from the stoneware clay. It's looking pretty beautiful. It is also made on the wood, so it's a wood sculpture. Now I made the sculpture as well and the miniature pieces as well. I don't make the pieces for the kitchen. It's individual preference, whatever you want to pick. But the stoneware clays are plastic and are often gray when moist. So they would be gray when are moist. If you see that this one is the containing water, you're gonna see pretty moist. Right now it's almost like a dried. So that's kind of texture it's looking. There are fired colors range from light gray to buff to medium gray and brown. So these will going to color in different colors from light gray and buff to medium gray and brown. Fired colors are greatly affected by the type of firing. So they are the mid-fire stoneware clay bodies are formulated to fire to maturity between 2150 degree Fahrenheit and 2260 degree Fahrenheit, or if you see the degree Celsius, it will be 1160 degrees Celsius and 1225 degrees Celsius. So kind of like a range. It's a mid-fire type of the clay, and this is the most common clay people use it. About the stoneware clay, that these are not porous and most of the people are use them. These are found in the kitchen. You can see some of the items are made from the stoneware clay. They are mid-fire clays, so you can fire these bodies. Higher fire stoneware clay bodies fire to their mature hardness. So take it as a stoneware clay needs more higher temperature to fire in comparison to the earthenware clay. I've already talked about the temperature, kind of like a mid-fire. Stoneware clay is kind of like a tough and quite non-porous in comparison to the earthenware clay. It's quite often used for the commercial manufacturers, especially for making the kitchen items. Because in the kitchen items, in the dinnerwares and all those kind of items, we need a clay body which is not that porous in comparison to the earthenware. So stoneware clays are probably used for that. Stoneware clay used commercially is often made of quite refined particles. As a result, the fired product has a smooth, consistent look. However, stoneware used by the potters for making pottery by hand often has a speckled look. This is partly due to with the impurities in the clay, but it is also the result of the grog. That is a separate topic. If you want me to cover what is a grog, different types of the clay that the grog have, and which type of clay is best according to it, let me know. Clay. And also it's not that expensive in comparison to the porcelain clay, so that's why it's kind of like an intermediate clay in between. Talk about the third and the last type of the clay that I'm going to be covering in this video, that is the porcelain clay. Now this clay is a little bit expensive, maybe more expensive depending on whatever area region you are living in. So depending on your city, your country, it may be more expensive than the stoneware clay and than the earthenware clay. So one of the most refined type of the clays that is available in the market is the porcelain clay. It's quite refined. It's actively used in the utensils and the kitchenware items and all the crockery items that you see in the market. These are actively made for that. However, clay requires very high temperature to fire in comparison to the earthenware clay, in comparison to the stoneware clay. You need a really high temperature. So let me just talk about the temperature. Porcelain is a high fire type of clay, which needs a temperature above 2232 degree Fahrenheit or 1232 degrees Celsius. However, it is most often fired above 2300 degree Fahrenheit, which is a cone 9. Now there are different kinds of the cones depending on what kind of kiln you are using, but it requires generally the higher temperature to fire in comparison to the stoneware and the earthenware clay, and it's quite white in color and it is most refined type. So if you're making a crockery item or any kind of like a pot or anything like that in which you need a very quite refined and very fine textures and patterns and very fine look, then this type of clay you can very well go forward and use it. So what it does actually look like when it is moist, porcelain clay is usually either a pale gray color or white, off-white in color. So it's usually normally after firing usually white in color and has a translucent kind of like an appearance, very fine particle. The major benefit of the porcelain clay that I want to talk about is because they are so fine, that's why the number of the clay particles are more the porcelain clay in comparison to the stoneware clay and the earthenware clay. For this reason, the porcelain can be pulled and shaped into very thin, delicate form. That is the beauty of the porcelain clay. Like if you're seeing some kind of crockeries or mugs or some kind of miniatures, they're quite thin and they're made into so beautiful that this type of clay has been used, because since these are very fine, so there will be high number of clay particles, so that it will going to allow to bend into the whatever shape you want to give very thin, delicate forms. So it's used for almost everything that you want to make, for your kitchen, for your dining table, for your home decor, for your miniatures is the best clay. And this is the best clay for beginners according to my own choice. Now I don't have any years of experience in the pottery. Like I started with the pottery I think 3 or 4 months back only, but I gained a huge experience because I was researching a lot. I was trying a bunch of the different types of clay bodies and I was trying and experimenting with them a lot, making the miniature sculptures and all. So I can say something based on my own experience and knowledge. Again, it varies from person to person. Some people love the porcelain clay more, some love the earthenware, so it depends on individual preference. But for according to me, the best clay to start with is the stoneware clay, because the stoneware clay is kind of like in between the earthenware clay and the porcelain clay. Like you're getting both the characteristics of both these clay mixed into the middle body clay. Like earthenware clay is amazing, it's quite cheap, but it is so much porous that even after firing you're gonna see the water will going to come out of it. But the stoneware clay is quite non-porous and the porcelain is not at all porous, so you're getting all the both the characteristics of the earthenware clay and the porcelain clay in the stoneware clay. It's not that expensive as well, it's easy to get started with that. You can make it whatever shape and size form you want to use, and also you can fire it at mid-fire. You don't need that higher temperature as it's required in the porcelain, so that is also the major benefit of using the stoneware clay. So I see that stoneware clay is kind of like in between these two, earthenware clay and the porcelain clay, so that's why I would highly recommend as a beginner to try your hands firstly with the stoneware clay. Then you can choose either the earthenware clay if you want a porous clay, and then either if you want not porous and you want to make something for your dining and kitchen, then you can very well go with the porcelain clay as well. It depends on your individual preference, but personally I feel that stoneware clay comes more handy and is having both the characteristics of the earthenware clay and the porcelain clay. So that is the thing that I recommend for beginners who are completely newbie to this clay world and want to get started with that. But if you have a little bit of experience in the clay worlds and you want a little bit more finer clay, then obviously going with the porcelain would be an amazing thing. But it depends on you. I use the earthenware and the stoneware clay, both these clays personally for my sculptures, for my miniatures. I don't make the things that I want to use it in the kitchen, or I don't want it to find clay particles, so I rarely use the porcelain, but it depends on you. Hopefully I have cleared the doubt, confusion about the clay bodies that you can use for the pottery, because this was a bigger confusion for so many of you guys, and also it was a confusion for me when I was getting started with the clay and pottery world. So hopefully I have answered this particular thing for you. Do let me know in the comment section below, and also if you want me to cover the separate video about the different kinds of the air dry clay, the polymer clay, and all the type of the clay that are available in the market, if you want me to make a video on that topic, do let me know in the comment section below, guys. But hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you want to more such video, consider subscribing. Thank you so much for tuning in today's video, guys. See you for the next time. Take care. Bye, guys.